in this pseudocode here, we're just going to look at what the relationships are, right? So if we have a file call, let's just call this file, right? Let's call this file, we can call this my file, right? Let's just call this myfile.py. Okay, under myfile.py, you have def A1, you have some code in def A2. Now, code, we have to note that code, but A2, right, uses A1, okay? So if A2 uses A1, and this is a use, right, this is a key word, then what you need is this will trigger a return statement. So you're going to return some value, okay, back to A1, all right? A2, but A1 is not dependent on A2, but so in other words, A1, A2 is dependent on A1, okay? So if A2 is dependent on A1, then A2 uses A1, so A1 therefore has to return so A2 could use it, all right? Now the question is, how do I go from here to here? That's the relationship that's in actually your project 3. So how do I do that? Well, to create this relationship, okay, all right, to create this relationship, I have something called main.py, okay? And in main.py, I have to basically tie this into this. But how? How do I tie it? Well, I tied in main. So I tie, what I'm doing is I am tying, that's another word for it, I am tethering A1 with A2. How do I tether A1 with A2? Well, I'll just have some value called X, and I designate it to A1. This is my call, right? And this A1 has called some value. So whatever that value is, that is A1. So if you were to mark it, that is A1. Now, how does A2 use A1? Well, I have something called a parameter. So the parameter is here. This is my parameter. And this parameter, I can call it, if I rewrite it, is df A2, and I can call it y, right? And then I use y to calculate, so I can say y equals, I don't know, something, 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 right? Whatever my computation is. I'm not sorry, that's not y equals. I could say the following. I can say, well, sum is equal to y plus y, or something like that, right? So what does this mean, right? So let's kind of observe what this means. So if we were to do this again, right, let's kind of redo this. How do I tie this all in? Okay, so this value here, right, step 1, let's use a purple pen here. This is step 1. So value goes to A1, right? This is step 2. I go ahead and set the value of A1, right, to X here, okay? Now I have to pull this X in. How do I pull that X in? Well, I went ahead and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the parameter. I'm going to set A2 to X. Okay. Now we have step 3. So step 2 now goes to 3. Okay. Now what happens here? This A2 and this A2 is what? Step 4. Because my X right here, my Y is equal to X. I'm going to go ahead and do this again in a cleaner format, okay? So I'm going to do this again for you so you have a little better understanding of what's going on, okay? We can kind of draw, kind of down in the middle, such, the multicolored pens, right? you have my file, .py, and you'll have a main, .py. And what you're going to have is you're going to have a DEF A1 as such. And let's say return some value. It's going to return a value. Okay. And then because A2 uses, you have another definition of DEF, A2. I'll leave some space, but it will not return a value because remember A2, the key here is that, and I'll put this in a different format, is that A2 uses A1. So if A2 uses A1, that means I'm going to return value, or that value is, okay? Now, obviously, I can't transition it, so we're going to write it again, and we're going to create a step. So this is step 1. Boom. It returns a value. Second step, the main is the tether. I tied in tether, okay? So x, and we set a value called x, is equal to A1. See the relationship from A1? I have A1, okay? And a set a value for x. But I need to put x in here. How do I get x in here? I do this, A2, x. So that value of x is now going to come in A2. Now I got to have a value here. What do? Well, I can have a different value or a parameter called y. And then I can use the y as, let's say, sum of y plus y, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But there's no return here because, again, the return value is only if another function is going to use it or if you use it somewhere else. We're just kind of printing it out here, right? Let me just say print sum. So what is that that fourth step? That fourth step is here. So now that is number 4. And this is how you do project 3. This is kind of the pseudocode for project 3 and understanding this sequence.